Hello, what I want to do in this screencast is give you a quick overview of what will be expected from you in your first module of leadership communication. I'm going to try to post at least one module overview for each week as we go through here, and I will go over the assignments, a little bit about the expectations, and then some tips and tricks for completing each one. So, first things first, for our first module, what I want you to do is go to the introductions discussion board and post about yourself. It can be a short introduction, it can be a detailed one. I would love it if you would explore with some audio-visual technology such as Screencast-O-Matic, Vimeo, Zoom, whatever it is you might like, and do a little bit of a video recording of yourself so that we can see you and get to know you right off the bat more effectively than just a short paragraph about who you are. I will need you to read the required texts and chapters, of course, and you will answer a discussion board question. But what I'm going to spend my time on will be these two assignments: developing interview questions and writing the Applying Strengths APA paper. For those of you who might be new to Canvas, whatever you need to do is click on Modules, go to Module 1, and then this next button down here in the bottom right-hand corner will move us through the assignments in order. So notice when I click Next, it took me straight to the discussion board where you can go ahead and just click Reply and start off your discussions immediately. There are some prompt questions there for you and tells you what the points are worth. Of course, I will have a post there with my overview video as well. As I click Next again, it tells you what to read, which pages, which chapters, and gives you the pictures for each book so that you don't get confused since there are 3 different texts. There will then be your Module 1 discussion post. The directions are here for you specifically, and the prompt is here. Please make sure that you do answer each question effectively. What I recommend is that you copy and paste these bullet points into your actual discussion post so that you make sure that you don't miss any area. I use these prompts as rubrics, so if you answer 2 out of the 3 questions, then of course you're going to just lose the points for whatever you did not address. So please take the time to look over these prompts carefully and make sure that you have thoroughly answered each section. Next, please make sure that you incorporate your textbook in at least your original discussion and or your peer evaluations. You have 3 texts to choose from. You don't necessarily have to use all 3 of them each week, but please make sure that you incorporate at least some reading from one of your texts into each post and response that you make. This will help you apply your learning more effectively and makes better use of your textbooks. As you go through here, make sure that you do cite effectively. If you'll notice here, our course designer has cited the books effectively as she goes through even just the prompts. So please make sure that you do give your textbooks appropriate credit. I will be giving you feedback and deducting points if I read through a discussion post that obviously has quoted something but then does not have effective citations with it. Clicking Next again, I want to spend some time on creating interview questions, which is part 1 of your COM 4500 project. That COM 4500 project, as you can see here, is going to have 3 different parts. This week, you are going to design interview questions that focus on communication and leadership. Next week, you'll actually conduct interviews with 3 different people to receive 3 different perspectives on communication and leadership. And for part 3, you will analyze those interviews to identify themes about your personal communication and leadership tendencies. For this week, what I want to focus on is how to write effective interview questions. You do need to make sure that you have at least 5 questions and that they are open. An open question allows your interviewees to respond with details, with narratives, with examples, with description. A closed question is a question that can be answered with a one-word answer, such as yes or no. And that is not an effective interview. Please keep in mind that down here in part 3, you have to analyze those interviews. Can you write 3 pages on yes or no? Probably not. So you want to make sure that you get in-depth answers. And the way you get in-depth answers is to have deep questions. So first things first, with an open interview question, you could ask something like, how would you describe my leadership personality? And they'll probably answer either with a good example or story, or they'll go, what do you mean by that? And then you can respond with, well, I'm kind of looking for how you see me as a leader, or if you see me as a leader at all. how would you describe me to somebody else? And that gives them a chance to use a lot of different descriptive words to give you some perspective, and then you can follow up with more questions. A mistake a lot of people make when they first learn how to interview people is that they will develop, let's say, 5 questions, and they will only ask those 5 questions. Now, logically, that makes sense, but realistically, it doesn't, because almost every single time someone gives you a response, you can follow up with another question to dig into that deeper. For example, let's say that my first open ended question is, how would you describe my leadership personality? And the person responds with something along the lines of, I think you are so quirky, but fun. Now, does it make sense just to move on to the next question, or do you want to explore how and why you're quirky? Of course, explore it. Take the time and say, how am I quirky? Could you explain that? Could you give me an example? And dig deeper. So you might end up asking 4 or 5 questions before you even get first past that first question. So by the time you've asked 5 root questions, a root question is like a big question, you're probably going to have a lot of different branch questions underneath each one of those that are just going to develop organically through your interview. So please realize that I want you to have 5 good root questions, just big, open ended questions, but I am going to expect you to organically develop follow up questions to dig deeper into your interviews as you go. That will give you an easier part 2 because you'll have better answers to your questions. And when we get to part 3, you'll have plenty of information to analyze, which makes writing a 3-page paper much simpler than trying to make 3 pages out of yes or no. Before I move on to the next element of this week, I do want to indicate that every assignment comes with a document or a PDF that is the rubric I utilize to grade that assignment. I use these specifically. I use these exactly. So you want to make sure that you follow them effectively as you go through each assignment, because I'm going to attach that rubric to your assignment with my feedback written into it. So you want to make sure that it is there for you. My computer is deciding to be slow and not pull them up, so I'm going to move on to the next element while it does that. To move on, our blessed slow computer, I've confused it trying to make it open a PDF file. It's had a hard pandemic. Now, the next part of our assignment is going to be the Applying Your Strengths APA paper, and while my computer decides to slowly but surely load our next page, I'll explain that. What you're going to do is use the access code that's embedded in your StrengthsFinder 2.0 book if you bought it new. If you didn't buy it new, you'll have to go to their website and buy an access code there. And you are going to take the StrengthsFinder assessment. That assessment is going to give you then a list of 5 strengths of your personality, and you're going to utilize those 5 strengths to write a paper. You're going to analyze what those 5 strengths are and how you can apply them to your life. Now, as we see here, my computer has apparently decided it no longer wants to function in the internet, which is very common where I live, so my apologies there. But the APA paper of Applying Your Strengths comes with its own rubric that I will also attach and use to evaluate your effectiveness at fulfilling those obligations. Now, one thing I am going to emphasize is that every week you will also have a quiz that will test you primarily on your textbook content. Now, that is your overview for this week. I apologize for the web browser crashing there at the end, but this is something that happens whenever you do live work, and we will move on with life. Now, if you want to look through those rubrics and email me any questions, you are absolutely welcome to do so. I appreciate you. Adobe is slowly waking up, bless it. All right, there we go. Finally, is the rubric for Module 1. And if we scroll down here, you can see it's very simple. It just says that you have a minimum of 5 interview questions. All of those questions focus on leadership. The questions are answerable for each of your interviewees, and your questions adhere to either memo or APA format. Please realize you are interviewing 3 different people, so your questions might have to change a little bit across those 3, although you can write questions that will apply to all of them. And since my wonderful browser decided to finally reload itself, oh, bless it, it's had such a hard day already. Just to remind you, you can find your rubrics always at the bottom of any assignment description. That is where they have been placed for you. I'm hopefully seeing if it'll pull. It really doesn't want to pull that next page, so I might just let it rest. But I appreciate you. I appreciate your attention. Thank you for watching this overview. As I mentioned before, the rubrics will always be embedded at the bottom of an assignment. If you need any assistance accessing your 2.0 assessment, please let me know. Thank you.